Well, good morning, and thank you for coming to Coffee with the Mayor. I wanted to let you know before we start. First of all, I am Liz Recchia. I am the WeMAR Government Affairs Director. So if you have issues or questions or things you want to know about cities, please let me know, and I'll try and help you find the information and answer the questions as best I can. I also wanted to let you know, if you were in attendance at our water summit last week, or if you were unable to come, we have that video for the entire event up on the wemargad website. So that's wemargad.org. 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 And that's where you'll find information on our events as well as city issues and our videos of our events. And probably in a few weeks we'll have the video of this event up there as well. But for right now, the Water Summit, we've got lots of great information. And if you're a commercial agent, you really want to know about what's happening, especially hour 2 of that Water Summit with replenishment and future water supplies. So for right now, I'd like to welcome you to Coffee with the Mayor. We're having coffee with the Glendale Mayor, Jerry Weiers. And he has brought with him staff members so that as the mayor explains some of the issues and answer some of the questions that we have for him, we have staff members who can also elaborate in more detail. So you get lots of good information today. Our staff members are Tom Duensing. He is Assistant City Manager for the City of Glendale. And we have Brian Friedman, who is Economic Development Director for the City of Glendale. So with that, if we could please welcome the mayor and staff. Okay, Mayor, you can sit right here. Right here, right there. I just want to remind you both Tom and Brian, you have hand mics as well. Okay, so those are yours. You don't have to share.
Yeah, I remember being in school. If you sat in the back, I remember you're the ones that usually didn't pay attention. So.
And you don't want to make. Okay, let's start with our first question for you, Mr. Mayor. Let's start with the big picture. What is your vision of Glendale 5 and 10 years from now? And if you could include the economic, job, building development, and outlook, and how you plan to accomplish that vision.
Well, I guess before I answer that, I want to start off with, I think most of you know, or maybe you don't, Western United States, the majority of the Western United States is not a strong mayor form of government, which what that means is the citizens elect a mayor, they elect a council, we come up with policy, and then we basically give that directive to a city manager that we hire. City manager then in turn hires directors from all the different agencies. So unlike a very, very large city, that the city mayor is basically the city manager. They make all the decisions. They sit there and decide all the different directions that they want things to go, and then the council usually will support that or not support that. So our situation is different, and I'm reminded many times by council members that I'm just one of 7 council. So with that said, I still have the DS, I still have a voice, and typically, you know, the voice that I have is for the direction of the city. I'm the only elected official in the city that was elected by the entire city, where all the council members are elected by individual districts. So once we sort of lay that out, the very reason I brought Brian and Tom is I think it would do an injustice for me to sit up here and try to make you think I'm the brightest guy in the world. I'm not. I'm somebody that understands my position. I understand the politics, and I understand where the city needs to go in order for us to fix the problems that we've had and have opportunities in the future. With that said, we hired our council, hired a very intelligent city manager, Kevin, and Kevin has been phenomenal. Kevin has then taken who he thinks is the best directors, and he's shifted some things around within the city. Tom Duensing was with the city and Brian before we hired Kevin, and Tom's expertise really is in the financial aspect of it. And I would be underrating Tom's ability if I said anything less than the man's phenomenal. And I say that in all sincerity. We've had some incredible opportunities to work together. Something he told me about 2 years ago, and I could tell when he told me he was sincere about it. He said, Mayor, the one thing I want to deliver to you is a very strong bond rating. And he said, I believe that we can do that. Now, keep in mind, and I'm not used to sitting down when I talk. I like to get up and walk around. But do you folks remember watching The Wizard of Oz when you were kids, and they had all the guards, and they're out there marching, and the guards are marching, and they're going, oh, ee, oh, oh. You remember that? That is like the most depressing thing in the world, right? That's the way our employees were. Tell me if I'm wrong. 4 years ago, our employees wouldn't make eye contact. They never smiled. They were scared to death to come to work. They were scared to death when they got to work that they'd be transferred or they'd be fired. And rightfully so. There were some major problems. Our city was pretty much being compared to the second most financially strapped city in the nation, second to Detroit, Michigan. Now think about that. A little over 4 years ago, we were the most second financially strapped city in the nation. And my wife says, and you ran for office for that? Well, yeah, I did, because I really believe that Glendale's got opportunities. I think we have a bright future. And when you're at the bottom, you can't go any, well, I guess you could. You can go another 6 foot down, right? But I wasn't ready to get buried. So we kept this momentum, kept pushing and pushing. But I realized very quickly that we have to set an example for our employees. We have to get the employees to quit singing that OEO song and start holding their heads up and being proud of where they work and what they do and what they accomplish. And we've done that. I walk down the hallways now, employees look at you, they smile, there's a twinkle in their eye, and it's very, very exciting. I know Brian, he never made it public, but I know for a fact that Brian had multiple opportunities to go to other cities, and I think you did too. They chose to stay here, so I thought to myself, first of all, we got to convince our employees that this is the best place to stay, that the future is here, it's not somewhere else. If we can prove that to our employees, we have to then convince our businesses. So I started 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. The very first thing I did when I found out 2 days later that I was an ex officio member of the Chamber of Commerce, and my staff member at the time said, well, I know you won't go to that because the former mayor didn't go to it. And I said, no, wait a minute. The former mayor wears dresses and high heels. I don't wear either one of those. Don't expect anything that she did that I'll do. Don't compare me to the former mayor. Give me a chance to prove myself. So if she didn't go to the Chamber of Commerce because they hated each other, they absolutely couldn't work together, then I'm going to make every point in the world to be there. If I can convince businesses that Glendale is the right place to be and that we're going to do the things they need to succeed, once we win the businesses and our employees, we'll get the citizens. There's no doubt in my mind we'll get the citizens. Citizens will buy in if they see everybody else buying in. So I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce at that time was about 400 members. They're right at 1,200 members today. And I'm not saying it's because of me, but I think it's because of me being part of them to help the Chamber accomplish the goal and also the city for us to accomplish our goal. With that, economic development has been a huge, huge part of Glendale. I heard stories after stories after stories that people would want to come to Glendale, and yet it was difficult for them to get anything done. Permitting was difficult. It took forever. They couldn't get people on the same page. And I thought, why are we making it difficult in our businesses? Why do we present hurdles and barricades and walls and shackles and chains for businesses when they are the people that will get us out of the problem that we're in? You don't tax your citizens higher. You actually give your businesses an opportunity to do more business, which raises that tax income, which gives us money to spend to get out of the problem. I don't think that's nuclear science. I think that's pretty easy stuff to figure out. And I find most business people figured that out a long time ago. So that's sort of how we got where we were and where we are today is getting rid of the people that were the problems. I would say we've done a really, really good job on the staff members that wanted to do things the old way. I think for the most part, 95% of the people we have now, we're all headed the same direction. We all understand the same purpose for our city and for our citizens, and that's one of the things that our council just adopted just recently, that's something that I live by each and every day. I wake up in the morning and I think to myself, is today a day that I can make a positive difference in somebody's life? whether that's something as simple as just stopping at a crosswalk and making sure a kid gets across the street safe, you know, getting somebody a cup of coffee behind me, something. Can I make a positive difference in someone's life? Our council adopted that. That is now our city's really motto, I guess, and that's to each and every day make a positive difference in someone's life. You know, I lay there in bed at night when I'm trying to go to sleep at night, and the gears won't stop, and I know you've all been there. You just can't go to sleep. You're thinking of too many different things. And I'll lay there and think to myself, did I accomplish that goal today? And there's days that I don't. And it really bothers me that I wasn't able to make that difference. But then there's those days that, man, you hit that home run, and it's just like, it's so cool. Not just one person, but multiple people. You make a positive difference in life. And that's in business, that's in charities, that's in so many different ways, in church, all the different things that this city offers. I was just saying earlier, I truly love what I do. And that was the one bonus that I never expected with this job. I thought it'd be a job that'd be rewarding. I never thought I would love what I do. So now I've totally forgot what your question was.
It's okay. We'll go on. We'll go on because you gave us a nice overview of your viewpoint of being a mayor and what you're trying to accomplish as far as the morale and the future. That's perfect. The next question is: commercial real estate agents and brokers work to attract businesses from out of state and out of country. Is the City of Glendale actively courting businesses for relocation? Our commercial agents tell us they sometimes need timely rezoning for companies needing flex space, light industrial, or research space. Does the city have a process the companies can access so the rezoning applications can be processed quickly and economically? And how do foreign free trade zones help in your economic development?
Okay, that's a lot.
It's a lot. I
like to tell stories when I'm asked a question. Stories tend to relate better, right? And this is a true story, and Brian will, I'm going to tell you part of the story and then let him finish it up. It was about 3.5 years ago, I think. About 3.5 years ago, we chose, and you're all familiar with the Coyotes saga, right? It was right after the Coyotes, the council at the time decided the Coyotes was staying. I was a no vote on that deal. But at the same time, understanding that that was a decision the council made, I said, you know, I want to do everything in my power to try to help make you guys successful. And so with that, we worked out a deal where Brian, myself, who? Barry Broom from GPEC, and then Nick Wood, the attorney from the Coyotes. We all went up to Canada, to Alberta, and we went to. This is like late January. This is like going to Florida from here in June. We went up to dumb time, but anyway, we went up to Canada, to Alberta and Calgary, and the mission for us was to try to bring economic development back to Glendale. Get out and meet the mayors. Got a lot of press time while we were up there, several print, TV, radio, and we actually were successful. We got one business to come down here and open in Glendale, which I thought was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, got a chance to talk with the other hockey owners and some of the challenges they had, and try to get past that part where I knew that our city couldn't sustain, we couldn't afford what the council at the time approved, this $15 million a year. I knew we couldn't support that, and I thought rather than trying to tax our way out of it, we need to try to get more business and try to grow our way out of it. That's not how things worked out, and you all know the story about the Coyotes later on how we renegotiated our contract. But yes, why we were up there doing that and trying to bring business to Glendale, at the same time, there's a little tiny building along 101 called American Furniture Warehouse, right? If you're going 65 miles an hour, it takes like 3 minutes to cover the whole thing. While Brian and I are up there, we're actually on the phone, and I'm talking with the gentleman from American Furniture Warehouse. He's done. He's ready to pull out of Glendale. They had sort of made the commitment to come, but not quite made the commitment. And they were upset because we had to deal with county, we had to deal with state, we had to deal with Phoenix, we had to deal with ourselves, Maricopa Association of Governments, APS, and SRP. Had to get all these problems toward they could open up their business. And I'm telling you, it was a huge deal. Brian's working like mad on one phone, and I'm telling this guy, don't give up on us. Don't quit me. I promise you we're going to deliver here. And before we got done, this was late January, and I said, when do you want to open? He said, well, we're looking at probably November. And I said, I want you to open by my birthday, which is August 26th. And he said, there's no way we can do that. And I said, we will do everything we can with permitting to make sure that's possible. And he said, we can't get it done that fast. I said, then it becomes you guys, not us. We'll have our part done for you to get that done. They opened a week before that.
Yes.
So it was like 5 months and 1 day or something like 5 months and 1 day for a 600,000 square foot building, permits, everything.
Wow.
So to answer your question, yeah, we do. Now, I'd like Brian to carry that a little bit further because there's other things going on that we can't actually say the names of the businesses, but there's some really, really exciting things happening, folks. In the next very few months, you're going to start hearing these and you're going to go, wow, wow. We thought everything was over in East Valley. You know what? It's going to be in Glendale. It's going to be in the West Valley now.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a fun.
Can you pick up your mic so they can
You just take it out of the basement. Yeah.
All right, can you hear me in the back? Right. Okay. That concludes my presentation. No. Just really the trip that the mayor was referencing. You know, when you get an opportunity to work with people, what I would say, it's no different than you all. You have a client right in front of your face. You know what he or she or the family is thinking. You have to interface with them. You go speak to a third party who is really detached, doesn't care, completely, you know, non-responsive, and it's just such a stress-invoking experience, you know, and I lived that experience professionally, and I know the mayor and Tom in his role, I'm really, really thankful for that, by the way, for both of them to be here, because when you have kindred spirits who really understand that, like you all do in your profession, that you can't remove the humanity from the experience. And so when the mayor's on the phone trying to do what he can on the political side with the C-level executives, and I'm on, as a technician working with the other registrants trying to get the building constructed and over the power, sewer, water, roadway issues, it takes sort of a triumvirate of things to do it. And when you clear things at the top politically and they engage the right kind of people like Tom and Kevin, who have different experiences but in the same family of things, you have the politics that sort of the paving the way, the water, sewer, and the power is the financial purse strings to my right, and then what it makes is shovel-ready lots for people who are technicians like me to do something with a party that actually is an end user. And so that's how I would explain that. And in my 18-year tenure, what has always been a difficulty, or some bit more difficult at every level, with all of these items, is that wasn't done. There was no unison. There was sort of this, we're on the second floor of City Hall where most of the technicians are stored, and it's almost like there was this experience of not having to, you know, share a full story of what the client's expectation was, how the open market really works. You know, we're not in charge. The client with the cash, the dream, the vision, they're in charge. It's not the council, it's not the city manager's office, it's the client, it's the end user who we have to you know, associate and make sure that they want to come and they have that belief system. And it's the triangulation of these things that are the reason why Glendale's pulled out of its history, because it is what it is. You don't get to the second to the bottom of the pile for any other reason than that's where you were at. And at the same point, you know, you don't get a triple bond upgrade last year if it wasn't for the policy and Tom's hard work with the restructuring and reorganization of the city's entire financial structure. And then a subsequent one, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we lose track of time. But what it says overall is it sends, although not spoken, a resounding, perceptive vibe through the marketplace. And that's why we presently have 2.8 million square feet under construction in the city, non-residential, full commercial, industrial. And it is nice to see that happening in the millions again. We have a couple million more in abeyance that we expect through the process here shortly. And when you're adding many, many millions of square feet at a time throughout your whole city, especially the Loop 101 and the 303, which I think we'll get to later, it really begins to change like you say, the emotive part of the employee experience, who then touches people differently, clients and end users differently, because they're happy, they're proud, and it matters, like that emotional component part of, your day experience blends into your home life at night, and then everything's sort of yin and yang. It ebbs and flows, and it's all part of a systemic, healthier feeling that, trust me, on the postmortems when we ask why we've lost or not been selected, because it's not site selection, it's site elimination. Everyone else got eliminated. You didn't get selected. And it's important to remember that. We didn't win, everyone else lost. And so that's what I would leave you with, is trust me, that's what they think. You're the last loser standing. That is honestly what they think. And so it is exciting to hear that, the notion of putting together the C-level executives that when we do and we need to do things like we did at the Media Center last week, a couple times actually, when we're meeting with very large end users, we purport differently. And when we meet with clients and we attach them to recent locates of other CEOs and who've made multi-million-dollar investments in our community, in fact, 493,000 of square feet of office, or 10% of our inventory, was let last month. And that's a significant finding, not hitting the media yet, but it soon will. It sends a resounding message about your marketplace. And when you connect them with past CEOs who just invested and you promise them things and they go through the system, we no longer have to speak for ourselves. We make a deal with the inbound folks who are agreeing to invest in our community collectively, that as long as we do what we say, you agree to meet with future C-level executives who are considering Glendale, and you agree to tell them what the experience was like, from workforce to the construction process, and we kind of buy a friend that way, not just in the moment, but ongoing sort of the business retention expansion component part of that. And that has been 75% of the time the reason why we've won. No hiccups, haven't lost one yet, have not failed to deliver, and then it's the C-level to C-level minus us present that puts them over the edge for why everyone else got eliminated. And so I think that's a little bit of the behind the scenes thing. Did I even answer the question? I don't know what that was.
You did great. Yeah, you did great. So real quickly, I want to make sure. The mayor referenced the coyotes. If the city of Glendale put together a very concise, nice timeline of events, and that's on the wemargad website. If you go to the Glendale and search on Glendale, you will find their nice little timeline there. So be sure and reference that if you're not sure of all the things. Did you, since you were mentioned as part of the trio that helped bring in this business, would you like to elaborate on some of your
Before he goes there, I want to tell everybody one thing. Tom told me that he wanted to bring positive bond rating to Glendale. And literally, I think it was about a month ago, 5-6 weeks ago, sitting on my desk is a bottle of A1 steak sauce. A1 steak sauce. Apparently, I bet somebody a steak dinner somewhere, and I didn't. I said, "What's this about?" And they said, "Well, actually, it came from Kevin's office, city manager." And I said, "What's that for?" And he said, "It's for the bond rating." And I said, I don't get the correlation." He said, "You just got an A1 bond rating." Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So that is in my trophy case. I guarantee you, I haven't opened it. But Tom, if you would.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? First off, thank you. I love coming out, talking to groups, kind of telling our story because it's a good story. As far as where we're at, and we'll hit some of these in a little bit more detail, the coyotes, our financial situation. But as far as economic development, I can tell you that is a core pillar to what we do, and it should be, because economic development really drives the services that you can provide. It puts police on the streets, fire on the streets, it beautifies your parks. It is absolutely fundamental. And like the mayor was saying, really good leaders surround themselves with good people. And that's what you're going to see. There are a lot of really positive developments coming. I can tell you it's as a result of the mayor pounding the pavement and then delivering it to Brian to deliver it. I've never heard last loser standing. That's hilarious. But just know from a city manager perspective, it is absolutely key. And as we kind of get over this financial hump and kind of go into a strategic mode, in other words, very calculated in what we want our city to be, just know that core to that is really our economic development efforts.
Well, that was short.
Yeah. So let's talk about community facilities districts. It's a big deal in our industry. One of the things that our agents, yes, it's going to go. Agents try to find when they are helping a buyer purchase a property or a seller sell a property, we need to make sure that that disclosure is made about if there's not just a CFD, but other special assessment districts. So with that in mind, sometimes we'll find that there will be several of these CFDs on one particular parcel. Does the City of Glendale have an easy way for real estate agents and their clients to locate these CFDs and special districts associated with a particular commercial or residential property?
Right, good question. Everybody understands the core of community facilities districts, correct? In my world, they are very much regulated. The regulations are changing. They just passed another law in this last legislative session. And I know one of the components to that is really if you have a CFD, they're required to have a website and a searchable website. I'm not quite sure what that looks like. You all may know better than I do, but that's a requirement of state law.
For some of us that may not know, could you very briefly tell us what a CFD is?
Absolutely. CFD, Community Facilities District. Basically what that is a separate legal entity. So in other words, you've got the city, which is, we're a legal entity. We've got a board of 7, the mayor and council, and then staff. A CFD is a separate legal entity. What this legal entity has the ability to do is to borrow or bond for public infrastructure. An example is if you have a certain area that is under development. Developers, this is a tool for developers. What they would do if they want to start a water utility, they could go out, and if they have a certain percentage of landowners that agrees that this is a good thing, I'm willing to pay for it, they have the ability to form a community facilities district to go out to the market, and you have to go through the city, but to go out to the market and basically issue bonds. And you can issue bonds to build public infrastructure, parks, water utilities, streets, police stations, fire stations, and the such. And just know that typically the way these work is when they issue bonds, they could issue general obligation bonds. And how are they paid? They're repaid through your property tax bill, right? So those within the CFD, within their property tax bill is a levy by this community facility district's board on their property to repay the amount that they've borrowed. Is that?
No, that's great. That's great. So it opposes a fee that comes out in our taxes for improvements. I get it.
Yes, sir. And there's a couple of different types of debt that these community facilities districts can issue. They can issue general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, and the such. But really, the short story is it's the responsibility of the property owners within this CFD to repay that, to pay the principal and interest payments on the amounts that they borrow. And again, it's a developer tool. Within Glendale, I'm only aware of 2 CFDs that were formed. They were formed around the Westgate entertainment area when that whole thing was being developed. Beyond that, if there were CFDs, we would actually have to disclose that in our financial statements because the mayor and council has to appoint board members. We now have a relationship. We do not have a financial commitment because of this money that was borrowed, but we have a relationship, and we actually have to disclose legally that relationship within our financial statements. So the question was, what's the easiest way to determine if a property has a levy on it to repay a CFD debt, right? There is no magic bullet. The best way to do it is to go out to the property tax bill. In other words, the county treasurer, take a look, pull up the property tax bill on a particular property and see if there is a CFD levy. It's under the section of I believe, special levies, or it's a separate section of the, you all know it better than I do. I also believe that in the MLS listing, There's a requirement to disclose if a property is under a CFD. I don't think that's bulletproof. It's not as bulletproof as the county treasurer, but that is a way to do it too. And I guess the third thing, and I sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier, you can always reach out, call our finance department and see, do you have any CFDs within the city? They would be able to do the research for you, and it's easy for me to say that because the finance director's not here. But the old one is. Yeah, I'm the old one. But that really is the best way. I'm not aware of the new legislation that just went through. I've got some notes here. It is Senate Bill 1480. And under that, it has a requirement, this is state law, Arizona Revised Statute, that CFDs are required to establish and maintain an official website that is electronically searchable by the public and contains a database of specified information. I don't know what that means. We don't have them in Glendale, but just you know, from your point of view, just know that legislation exists out there.
Thank you. And you can, if you go to the WeMARgad website, I have a summary of some of the legislation, and that is one of the items that's on there, so you can link in and read that bill itself. There's a link to that bill. Thank you for that. So staying with the disclosure issues, real estate agents and brokers need to also disclose property that's around Luke Air Force Base. And there's the noise contour maps, but sometimes it's very difficult to figure out if the parcel of land that your client is interested in purchasing is in or out of which zone, and if it's a buildable lot or parcel or not. And I was able to speak with John Froke earlier this year, and we were talking about this issue, and if it was possible with your new maps, because you have that new GIS mapping, interactive mapping, which is really great, and I have a link to that on the GAD website. You can go to the Glendale interactive map. It is really great. And my question was, is it possible to overlay so that when we search, one of the tick marks we can search is that Luke Air Force overlay, so we can look at a parcel and see where it is within those buildable contours. Is that something? And I know you guys were working on that and talking about it, and I was just wondering what the status of that is, or if it's something that's going to be possible.
Well, yeah, and I want to address Luke first, and then I'll probably have you answer the other part of it. I served 8 years in the Arizona House of Representatives in the legislature. I also chaired military affairs and public safety, and one of our biggest challenges for Luke Air Force Base was making sure that we protect the mission of Luke Air Force Base, and that's training the world's finest fighter pilots. Okay, whether you know this or not, and some of you might be surprised, the largest Air Force in the world is the United States Air Force. Okay, who do you think the 6th largest Air Force is in the world? Anybody? Luke Air Force Base. The 6th largest Air Force in the world is Luke Air Force Base, which is U.S. Air Force. We have the largest fighter training base in the world, but it's the 6th largest Air Force. We have scheduled 144 F-35s coming to Luke, along with 2 squadrons of F-16s. With that said, we had to figure out a way with the legislature to protect their mission, and that's with the contour lines, finding out what can they do safely, how can they conduct their mission, how can they train these young pilots that literally 3 or 4 weeks after they leave Luke, they could literally be in combat. 3 or 4 weeks after they leave Luke, it's that fast. The development that comes with Luke, the $2 billion plus per year from just Luke itself, is huge for our valley. It's huge for the West Valley. We now have 400 Lockheed Martin. Yes. 400 Lockheed Martin folks that are now here. 3 years ago, we had 1 person from Lockheed Martin. It's grown that much. As the new people come on and it continues to grow, we'll keep doing these things. The one thing that we are committed to do, and that's not to change the flying mission of Luke. We're not looking to add more airplanes. We made a promise as legislators, as mayors, as council, as county supervisors, not to increase the flying mission of Luke. We don't want people to be bothered with more and more and more noise. What we want to do is maintain that level of 144 F-35s and the 2 squadrons of F-16s. But we want to figure out a way with Luke, can we add other missions, whether it's Navy, whether it's Marines, or whether it's guys sitting in these they look like storage boxes, but literally they'll be sitting in there and they'll be flying drones halfway around the world. Those are the type of things that we're trying to figure out. What's something that would be compatible with Luke and yet not change the way your perception is when you're driving down the street or you're trying to go to sleep at night and you hear jets flying. Well, the sound of freedom is the F-16s and the F-35s, but there's a point we don't need any more sound of freedom. We got a lot of freedom going on right now, right? And nobody supports Luke and our veterans more than myself. I can promise you that. But that's why it was so important with these contour lines, the ways that they fly. I'm a pilot myself. I own my own airplane. And you have to land an airplane or take off an airplane into wind. That's just the way it works. If you try to take off with the wind, you have to go a lot faster ground speed to get enough lift to get off the ground. You don't want to take off 400 miles an hour. You want to take off as slow as you can with the wind blowing into you so you get a quicker lift. And the same thing with landing. You want to land as slow as you can safely. So the contour lines is something that came up with. Everybody agreed on it. It's something that seems to be working just fine. And as far as the overlap, I believe that we have a solution for that.
We do, yes. So thank you for the idea. So what we've done is, sorry again. What we decided to do, based on the fantastic suggestion, is to go ahead and incorporate a brand new layer on the outbound system that you'd referenced.
Great.
So it'll be a standalone as its own layered system so that you
Terrific.
can see exactly where the overlays and the noise contours are out by parcel. And so that's in the works,
That
and
is
John Froke is working on that.
Fantastic.
And can I squirrel for a little bit? Right, make her work for her money. So what I really wanted to say is that there is a betterment happening in Glendale that is systemic. It's not just a couple one-offs here and there. It's a holistic betterment. Our websites, as far as I'm concerned, are not award-winning. And Tom and the mayor have made sure that we've just hired a new web architect designer. I forgot all his fancy title names, but in summary, we're able to do these things and these improvements because we're repackaging, rebranding, reprioritizing, really understanding more what we need to do from a business sense and how we're perceived in those sort of the soft goods, because we don't have to worry as much about sustenance. If you're whole and you're healthy and your city's full, which is the other news for Glendale, as a result of these betterments that the mayor and Tom have been working on, we've been able to pretty much sell out the city. We have no big boxes left citywide at all on the retail front, nothing over 75,000 square feet. The one building we have at 59th and the 101 that's at half demised is under NDA. So that's really it there. We're about 7% citywide per CoStar on retail. Our industrial is at 2.8%. We have absolutely nothing on rail, and that's about 8 or 10 points lower than the valley average. And then on the office side, we are effectively, if you look up CoStar and the way it purports information, it'll show 20.2%. Absolutely not true. Present day reality, isolating Glendale only based on the 493,000 square foot last month, it's 14.8%. If you look at the stuff that GPEC, Greater Phoenix Economic Council, who we partner with on the business attraction side, or ACA clients would look at, anything over 20,000 square feet as a single standalone building or office space within a large office building, 2. First floor of Bechtel, ish, we just retain them here in our city. And the second place is the 3rd and 4th floor in parts of Westgate on the west side of the building. Those are the only 2 places in the city of Glendale at this moment, based on last month, that we can welcome new companies because we are sold out. And so that's the good news, is we have really, really large first world problems in that we've got the revenue and Tom's counting it, and the mayor's able to then dole out the services to the citizens based on the new enterprises that have joined our lineup, which are significant. But now we're out with GPEC and trying to build new office space, primarily out along the 101, because that's where the market wants to go. Mm-hmm. It took us forever to manage the old Honeywell building in Tlavi, south of Bell, and it's been to the altar 50 times, at least, because it's off the freeway. The only thing that office space is wanting, the end users, is they want their sign visible to 150,000 passerbyers a day. And they're not alone. Retail demands it, and even multifamily. I can't even get Mark Taylor to look one-offs off the Loop 101 on the manufacturer. On the multifamily housing. So it's interesting, the predominance, the preference is so heavily market-driven to the freeway that if I said 10 to 1, I would think that would be an understatement. They just won't look.
Right.
They don't want to come.
If I could add on to what he's saying, and I can't use any names, can't go into any specifics, but less than 2 weeks ago, I was asked to go to a meeting that literally was out in the middle of nowhere, and I swear it was out in the middle of nowhere. And when I got out there, there was representation from the state of Arizona, from Maricopa County. We had a large contingency from Glendale, and we had an entire group of folks from a business from back east. I can say New York, right?
Yes.
Tell me if I can't say New York.
You can say New York.
From New York. This development, my understanding is it's down to 2 places, Glendale and one other, East Valley. We seem to be on the very leading edge, and this potentially is close to a $500 million project, brand new, ground up, that will be, was it 400 jobs? About 400 new jobs. And yet, I'm not at liberty to tell you who it is or where it is. And I can tell you that's only one thing. There's a dozen other things I can think of that are just as big, that are all happening all at the same time. And that's economic development that's partnering with GPAC. It's operating also with the state of Arizona. So, you know, everybody understands for us to continue to grow, it's brand new buildings. It's not taking over existing buildings.
Yeah, and it's interesting what the mayor's talking about. Project Daisy and Project Q were last week and over the weekend, and Kevin approved those topics for me on Monday. And so there are so many of them happening now because of perception. You know, and that's one of the things that I would just want to say, that it's, in the end, Peoria is not that different at Northern on the 101, north of the casino, as Phoenix is with John F. Long just south in Algodon. It's the same workforce, it's the same freeway, same basic costs, same land costs, same. So what is the driving difference? Why is Cabela's coming there and Tanger and AFW? Because believe me, they're looking all up and down saying, well, you're not as handsome as that guy and that guy, you know, because it's about elimination and you're not that sexy. And so
They don't say that to me.
no, ever me either. I'm just enjoying your guys' company this morning. But if you really knew how brutal, I mean, maybe you do from your client base, you know how brutal clients can be. Try being the government when that your sort of humanity is removed, because you just represent a non-living entity, but you're the face of it. I can't imagine what some of the things that said to the mayor, but I mean, I have been told such.
How much time do you have?
How much time do I have? I'm really enjoying this. Well, okay, let me switch back to one other thing since I've said that. One thing that I think the mayor is doing exceptionally well, and it just sort of dawned on me of late, is he's putting bilingual and trilingual people in the right positions. What I mean by that is, within the city of Glendale, we've typically rotated in positions. Tom's the finance director and the assistant city manager, post-past position. So I used to work with Mickey Lund years ago as head of special projects, more on the hard side, engineering, architecture, planning side of the house. And so my job was to build, prior to Tom and the mayor joining us, was the stadium's construction and the arena's construction. And I was the city's forward, the project manager, representing all departments. And, you know, the fact that I'm still there, but I'm on the forward side of the house now I'm really internal affairs. Because really, my old colleagues that are still there working with me, they remember me as a technician like them, but I'm representing the forward side of the house. Tom is out as the assistant city manager, but he's really the purse strings and the winner of the Valley of the Sun's 2014 CFO of the Year. You don't get that release from the city manager spot usually. And so there's this inability any longer in a post that you think you sit in, that you own, this notion of I own something. No, you don't. As a city employee, you do not in Glendale. And for example, the mayor was kind enough, he has a very talented employee, Jessie Peterson, is former head of chief of staff. She's now my assistant. And so
He owes me big time.
yeah, really, because she's a great. But it's perfect for the mayor, because we really are an extension of Tom's office and the mayor's office. We're 5 people. You could stick us in, we were billed as an standalone department-ish, but truly we're just a part of the mayor and Tom's office. It is the natural setting for it. It's because it's important, because it does all the things like without a job, you have no quality of life. And so you need one. And I would just kind of conclude by saying, I got told, really, really, really told off poorly in 2008. And it was a magic moment for me. And it was the Humana CEO who did it. And I really owe him to this day. He basically sat me down in 2008. And I was struggling because I was hard sciences, and I loved to do the construction for Glendale. But they'd made me front of, the forward in the house, and I really wasn't my personality, yes, but my skill sets, no. And so I was struggling in '08, and this gentleman sat me down and said, hey, listen, let's get something straight. You ain't that great. You're not that smart. You certainly don't look that entertaining or interesting to talk to. I'm only here because I have to be. If you were that great, you wouldn't be working for government. You'd be out on your own in private business. I'm pretty much disgusted to be in your presence. And so let's just get this over with.
And he was having a good day then.
Yeah. and that was polite. And so I'm looking at him, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, I'm listening. What'd you say? I'm listening. I said, I'm listening. I'm going to learn. What are you thinking? I'm going to learn something. What do you want? Like, exactly what can I help you with? Like, besides your warm introduction, how can I help you? And he said, I'll tell you what I want. I like this building at 91st and Glendale. I like it. But, see, the problem is, I want a really big sign that says Humana for my 100 employees. I want you to take out what you're not going to build any office space in this community at this time in 07, 08. You know what's happening. I want you to take these 2 office tower spots and let me pave over them. I want you to take the parking spots and not make 10-foot wide spots, but 9, because I'm going to need more spaces. I want you to let me have cover parking. I want you to take the one tenant that's in this small area and move them out here. I want you to get rid of the drive-through where the Starbucks is never going to happen right here. Get rid of it. I want you to change the ingress-egress point on the left-hand turn lane in. I want you, and the list kept going and going. And so I kind of thought to myself, have some game, do something, think, with this gentleman. So I said, okay, this is my idea of, business at the time. So I said, okay, I'm listening. If I can do all of that, I'll see you tomorrow. If I give you every single permission you need in writing, you go to bed, you sleep well, you have no consternation, you can just absolutely begin work tomorrow. Would you come to Glendale? He said, yes. But you're just the front side of house. You don't have any capacity to give a permit. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And so I went to all my friends, John Froke, Pam Wirtz at the time, the building official, which you would know, and everybody that's still there. Craig Johnson was the city engineer building Cabela's with me. Now he's the water services director. Eric was partnerships. What is there now? I forgot. But he does something in downtown with the civic centers and a few other things. Like I told you, everybody has moved to another department head position. I went to all of them and said, need a favor, need a favor, need a favor. Trust me? Yes, yes, yes. I just looked around the room. I wrote all the approvals. I met him the next day. I had it slid it across the table. And he said, welcome to Glendale. I said, how did you do that? You don't have any, that's not even your skill sets. That's not even what you do. I said, well, what you don't know is the only thing I knew how to do is what you asked. I'm the old head of special projects. This is all anything I know how to do. So from now on, if I know that's what business wants, I'm just going to give you guys permits all day long. I didn't know that's what you wanted. So in 08, we shifted our paradigm to listening and permit giving. 2 things.
Speed to market.
Speed to market. And so that was it. What do you want? We're listening. I give permits. And so that's how we are in the position in Glendale now of full, effectively sold out relative to all areas of what we have. We have 9 properties in the city of Glendale office-wise greater than 10,000 square feet. 9 of 5.1 million square feet. And so I think hopefully with this little bit of background and juice about why I think things are happening is they're clearing the way politically perceptively above, and it's letting us mature in our spots, take different posts, become bilingual in our appreciation and our empathy and our introspection for what we do for our community, and that we're in service roles, and that our job is to give a permit and help someone. And we're trying to do what we can to emulate what the mayor and Tom are setting up.
And I think I want to cap that before your next question. And I think what it comes down to is between our city manager, Tom, Brian, myself, it's a matter of trust. We each have to believe that the other person's capable of doing what we know they can do, and that they will do what they said they'd do. And so each and every day, it's that matter of trust that you do exactly what you said you'll do. kind of like the football game, the coach, okay, last week you won, what are you going to do for me this week? It never stops. You have to continually keep proving yourself every day. And this team has showed that. You know, I'm a strong believer in my office with Carrie, Tammy, and her. We just hired a new girl, I can't remember her name. Lori. It's a matter of everybody does everything. You don't have a one job. It's you do whatever you got to do to get that job done. We are servant leaders, and we work for our citizens. Period. Period.
I'm only laughing because I did get a little bit of a call out. I have to be careful. I'm sure Tom feels the same way. He's got to get my
Get your
finance department. Oh,
Mike.
because yeah, I'm consistent. If you know, Tom has to go on his knees back to the finance department because you don't want to be seen as that guy. It's like you have a new girlfriend, you live in the same apartment complex, but you know the boyfriend's right across the hallway. I mean, we're all doing that to each other, so you have to be very humble.
Something you need to tell us about?
No, not that way. I meant the other. Exactly. So I guess my point of saying that is, you know, I had an opportunity last week to do my old job, and entirely. The agenda, setting it up, who does what, names associated with outcomes, straight down the list of everyone's name. And one particular department did kick back and said, I think you're in a time warp. I think you think this is 2003 again. I'm like, oh, well, that was some good times. It was right before the market was up. I'm like, it feels kind of like this. I'm like, I'm with it. But in the end, if you don't let me do this and, you know, get things moving with the client so I can get your name attached to each of these items, I'll stay forward in your business the whole way through. If you let me do this right and get everybody set up and get a relationship going, I can step to the right, stand next to the client, and just make sure everything goes well along the way. So let me do this early part, be out of my lane a little bit. You get right back in, I'll get out, and it will all be the better for it. So it does create some learning curves and, you know, change and struggle along the way, but the culture of Glendale, I think what the mayor and Tom were getting to, is changing and for the better. And you know, when people go from 100 people I used to have in my department down to 20-something, those that are left are tenacious. And they are like rabid, I would say. And they're purposeful in what they do because they chose to stay. So there's meaning and there's like they're part of the carpet, you know, and all that stuff. And it really makes for the reason why people didn't leave to the mayor's point, because you feel connected. And with that, you feel, you know, like you really, it's personal. And I think that's the best part of working for Glendale.
Okay. Well, let's take a 5-minute break so you can get up and stretch your legs, and then we're going to come right back and we'll finish up a few more questions. Okay, 5-minute break. Okay, so our next question is going to be, Glendale's budget concerns are very well known, as everyone has alluded to earlier. Recently, Councilmember Clark requested staff consider zero-based budgeting. Can you explain to us how the city budgets currently and what it would mean to the city if it moved to zero-based budgeting?
Well, I'll address that really short, and then I'm going to turn that over to the expert. Zero-based budgeting is something when I was in the legislature we looked at extensively. There's just a point where you have to kind of go back and reanalyze, is the money I'm spending where I need to spend it and what I need to spend it for. Things continually keep changing all the time. It's an expensive proposition if you have everybody taking and counting every paperclip and thumbtack. That does get expensive, and a lot of people would say, you know, but this group of people, this office never changes. They do exactly the same thing all the time. Why are you making them do that? I actually think zero-based budgeting is a good idea, sort of on a rotation type schedule. But I'm going to let Tom talk about that because that really is his specialty.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. The reason I want to talk a little bit about our budget concerns, kind of where we are at, and where we're going, it's a good story to tell. I don't think the public understands the gravity of the situation we were in, and I'll hit that. I actually talk about this around the state. Step back. I've been with the city about 3.5 years. My first week on the job, I got a call from the Wall Street Journal, a reporter, and the reporter asked me, how are you going to pay your bills? It was that simple. After I cleaned up the mess that I created in my office, basically what it caused me to do is kind of take a step back and say, how deep is this problem? They published an article a couple weeks later, and the mayor alluded to it. Of the cities over $250,000 in population, the worst financial shape, Glendale was number 2. Detroit was number 1. Glendale was close behind number 2. And then there was a big gap, and there was 3 other cities that actually had what they call negative fund balance, negative savings. We were living off our credit card, is what that is. That has serious issues. What did Detroit do? They filed bankruptcy. I don't think bankruptcy in Glendale would help Brian's economic development efforts. I don't know what the real estate does in Detroit. My guess is that didn't help. So a testament to the mayor and council. The mayor stepped in at the bottom of this. I mean, that's a huge deficit to fix. Roll forward a few years, we made some very, very difficult decisions. Our employee turnover was 20%. Think about that, 1 person in 5 leaving every single year. So after 5 years, your staff completely turns over. Mayor talked about the employees coming in, just marching. They didn't want to create waves. That's true. How do you get rid of that and get a sense of pride in your city? That's another huge obstacle that this mayor and council had to deal with. So what we did is we made some very difficult but necessary decisions, and we alluded a little bit to the coyotes and kind of the decisions that were made. I won't get deep into that unless anybody wants to, but I can tell you that was a financial decision. That was a financial decision that your police services, your fire services, your parks benefited out of a financial decision. It was really that simple. So we roll forward a few years, we just started to receive bond rating upgrades. What does that mean? Moody's and Standard & Poor's, they understand our story. They had been downgrading us for years. About the time that the mayor started is when it stopped.
No, when I started, they downgraded even more. It's like, oh, come on.
Soon after the mayor starts, but that yeah, okay. Yeah, that wasn't his doing. I'm here to tell you. But again, some of the decisions that this mayor and this council made, the mayor will say, and this is the one time I get to publicly disagree, he'll say staff. No, it's very simple. It was the decisions that this mayor and council had to make. They're the ones getting the phone calls. They're the ones that whack the gavel on the votes. That's really what mattered. So over a period of 2 years, we have notched up between the 2 agencies 5 notches. Okay? That's huge. What does that do? That instills confidence in those people investing in Glendale. That instills confidence in the employees that work for Glendale. There is a sense of pride that's returning. And again, what it required us to do and required this council to do is make very difficult decisions to hold back on some of the things we needed to do. There are demands for our services all the time. I never hear we need less police officers on the streets. But I can tell you, if we double the police force, we will not have enough money in our savings account when the next downturn comes to be able to weather that. In other words, we would have to make drastic decisions. So the idea is to get enough money in your savings account, that fund balance that Wall Street Journal wrote about, to get enough money in your savings account to where you can weather the next downturn. That's what that's all about. Are we there yet? We're not. We probably have 2 or 3 more years. The rating agencies are watching us very closely. But I can tell you, this mayor and this council, they're delivering to these rating agencies what we told them we would do. And that's huge. You know, before, when we were doing bond deals, we had rooms full of lawyers grilling us on, are you really going to do what you said you were going to do? And the mayor talked about it, it's trust. I can tell you we're currently going through a refunding. It's about a 10-minute phone call now. It's no big deal. And so that really is the trust that is now instilled in our investors in our bonds, but we're seeing that kind of permeate now through the organization and hopefully through the public that okay, they are on solid footing, they will be able to provide the services that this public expects, and really they deserve because they pay for it. And so at the end of the day, we are now able to go from a financial crisis situation to where we're relatively stable, and now we can get in more of a strategic mode. So we brought Kevin Phelps in, who's developing our strategic plan, and within that strategic plan, we're now able to say, what do we want to be? What do we want Glendale to look like? How can we get tactical about this? And it's a really, really good feeling. But let me tell you, it was a lot of hard work, a lot of anxiety. I'm only 25 years old. Over the past 3 years, and again, it's the mayor and the council. Mayor will say no, he'll get it, and he'll disagree, but that's the truth. And so you really need to know that. Let me hit zero-based budgeting.
Well, but before you tell them the results of what we've done that just happened, just throw in a refi.
Right. So what the mayor's referring to is we go out, and if we have some of our bonds, it's like a mortgage. We have some of our bonds. If we're able to refund it and get a lower interest rate, we save money. So we did our first refunding a year or two ago. We saved $50 million. That's $50 million that we were going to have to pay that we don't have to pay. It's that simple. Recently, and what Mayor was pointing to, we recently did another refunding. We had bonds that were eligible to refund. We went out to the market just within a period of 2 weeks, $2 million. That's $2 million of taxpayer money that we will now not have to save.
We can pay towards the balance rather than put it into interest.
That's exactly right. We can put that in a savings account that assures you'll have good quality services. We've got another refunding. I've got a phone call today at 12:15. There's another one in the hopper. We hope to save anywhere between $8 and $10 million of interest that we will not have to pay today.
I'm giddy.
Yeah, it's real money. That's what that means. That's huge. That can be put in the savings account. That can be used to address park needs, and it's all a result of really the hard work that they've been doing over the past few years. And for me, the finance guy, it really feels good. When I told the story of the Wall Street Journal and kind of our fund balance was negative, which, by the way, we've turned that around to the tune of $64 million. So we're negative 29, we're now positive 35. That's a $64 million swing. When we told that story to the finance directors, from cities and counties and governments from around the state, there was a gasp in the room. They had no clue. So it was a really serious situation. Now, zero-based budgeting, now that we're able to get strategic, the concept of zero-based budgeting has been thrown out. I'm kind of a believer in the mayor. It has its time and its place. However, it is very complicated and very expensive to do initially. It takes a lot of resources and a lot of analysis to do it. And so I'm kind of in the mayor's camp where there are certain areas where zero-based budgeting makes sense. There are certain areas where police services, zero-based budgeting makes less sense because we are going to provide police services. You shouldn't have to have a police chief that wants to go in and defend putting officers on the streets. That is really a foregone conclusion. So there's nobody that I know of. I've been in this business for about 25 years. There's nobody I know of who does pure zero-based budgeting. Typically what happens is it's a hybrid. Zero-based budgeting is basically you justify every expenditure you're asking for. And there is nobody that I know of who does it. There are hybrids. I would say the process that we use in Glendale is a hybrid, meaning we take a look at what Brian has received, we take a look at what he's spent, but then we grill him. We say, is that necessary? Is that really toward the goal of what you want to do? And so typically what's appropriate for governments is a hybrid approach. My hunches will kind of be evolving to a zero-based budget, but I just want to be very clear. it may not be the best process for all the services that you provide.
And I'd like to add one more thing to the earlier story about.
This is the disagreement again.
No. This is the severity of how desperate our city was, and again, I like telling stories, true stories, because it's easier for people to understand. I was sworn in on a Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, they had meetings stacked up for me, and quite honestly, I don't remember any of the people the first couple weeks. I don't remember. I literally, it was. People always use this example of drinking out of a fire hose. I was standing under Niagara Falls trying to drink. It was overwhelming, to say the least. And they took me into a room the next morning, the second meeting that I had. I still don't know where the room was. Closed the door, and they said, "You need to sit down." And I said, "Okay, this is the way my wife starts something, and it never comes out good. You know, you need to sit down. We need to talk." And I sat down. They said, "We have to go and declare bankruptcy." Now, I got sworn in less than 12 hours before that, okay? And I said, "No, we're not going to do that." "Well, Mayor, we don't have a choice." And I said, "I totally 100% disagree with you. You've got lots of choices. You have just refused to exercise those options. You didn't like those options. You had choices. You just didn't like them. But I can tell you, I'm not a real bright guy, and I'm certainly not an attorney, but I can tell you that a judge would never let us go bankrupt if we haven't exercised every option that we have available to us. Number one, the thing that I hate the idea of more than anything is raising taxes. We haven't done that, and we could do that. You still have the capacity of raising taxes to help get out of debt. So no, we're not going to go bankrupt. You need to find some solutions. You need to figure out a different way to make this happen. But no, we're not going to go bankrupt, especially not 12 hours after I got elected. No, I'll be the shortest term mayor in history. So it really was that desperate. It was that bad. And yet at the same time, my job, I truly look at my job as mayor as I'm the city's biggest cheerleader. I need each and every day to promote our city and make people feel good and understand why Glendale is the place to be and where you want to have your businesses and your future. And so it was very challenging for me at the beginning. And I don't drink, so.
Thank you. So I want to make sure that we get to, speaking of your promotion of local businesses, I want to make sure that we get to this. One of the things you do is recognize local businesses. You have a whole program around that. Can you tell us about your program and how you came up with the idea and how local businesses can participate?
I can, but again, I have another story. I literally, Friday morning, will be going down to Rocky Point, Mexico, with a gentleman that I met. And I haven't been to Rocky Point for 25 years. It wasn't a great experience 25 years ago. But this gentleman used to own a business in Glendale about 20 years ago, sold out when the economy was doing really, really well. He took that money and started doing contracting, went down to Rocky Point and started building high-rise. If you've been down there, I guess there's several high-rise buildings. He's the one that's been building those, been very successful. He called me up, you know what I'm talking about, called me up 3.5 years ago, and he said, "I want to come back to Glendale. I want to start my company that I had before. I sold it to them. They went bankrupt. The non-compete is all over." He said, "I want to start my business because I think the economy is turning around. I like Glendale. Glendale's been good for me, and I believe that I can make a good run." And so I got really involved with Brian, and we tried to do everything we could to help get him started. And he said, "If you guys can get me open and do it expeditiously, quickly, because time is money, I'm going to bring 75 employees to the city." We just got him his green tag on his second enlargement of the building literally 2 weeks ago. He's now pushing 200 employees. At the same time he's pushing 200 employees, we talked yesterday specifically about the new building, which is going to be 3 times the size that he has now. Brand new building going up, and he understands that there's some things that we can do as far as helping with, and I don't know all the technical part of it, but helping with bonds and stuff like that in certain areas. So we're starting that process. At the same time, the mayor of Rocky Point asked me to come to Rocky Point to watch a baseball game. And I'm like, Not exactly my thing. I'm not, baseball's okay, but at the same time, I understand that trade with Mexico, with Glendale is important. People may not think it's that important, but it's important. Not so much just buying a product, but having the capacity of exporting things that are manufactured in the valley, because we are a total region. We can't just think Glendale only. We have to think of all of the West Valley and the valley. But this gentleman has an opportunity to sell his product made in Glendale, export it to Mexico. And so I went and asked him, I said, hey, I got invited to go to a baseball game in Rocky Point. And he said, well, I've got developments that I've been doing down there. I said, the mayor asked me to go, and he said, well, I know the old mayor, I don't know the new mayor. And I said, what's chances of you going down there with me? So him and I will be going down Friday morning. We'll be down there Friday night, Saturday, and come back Sunday. And it's really a business development opportunity. But if I can get him on good standing with the mayor down there, get the mayor to know me, where he can sell his product that's manufactured in Glendale into Mexico, all that's going to do is just bring more jobs to Glendale. So that's the kind of stuff. I'm not going down there to drink. I don't drink. So, and Rocky Point's the last place I want to be in June. I'd rather be in Anchorage, Alaska. But again, to me, that is the job, and that's to promote the city, be Glendale's cheerleader as much as I can. So your original question, I have a thing that I started almost 4 years ago called Business of the Week. I've owned multiple businesses. I owned a chain of steakhouses. I had an aviation business. You've probably seen me pulling banners. I have proposed to more women than anybody that I know, and my wife helped me do it. She actually helped me build a sign that says, Jan, will you marry me? Susan, will you marry me? Of course, they were all for other guys. They weren't for me. We had a very, very, very successful trailer manufacturing business in Phoenix that I closed just when everybody calls it the Great Recession. There wasn't nothing great about it. It was horrible. But when the recession hit really hard, I was in the House of Representatives, and I just simply shut my business down. I didn't want to try to keep something open and not be able to serve, because I really love serving. And I recently sold my property a couple of years ago, and so financially we're doing very, very well. But I understand that government, the reason I got into politics, when I first told my wife I wanted to run for House of Representatives, she says, but you don't even like politicians. And I said, no, I don't. And she goes, no, but you like hate them. Yeah, pretty much. I still do. I don't like people that get into politics to try to make themselves look good. I want to support, and I like the idea of servant leadership. I truly believe of trying to be a statesman, not a politician. I promised my wife on my headstone, if I die before her, if she puts politician on the headstone, I will haunt her forever. Okay? I will. Now, if she puts statesman on there, I'll leave her alone. She'll be fine. But government has been notorious for getting in the way of business, for making things difficult for business when the population seems to think that you can tax and charge businesses anything you want because they can afford it, but they forget who's paying for that merchandise, that material, that product is the consumer. The businesses can't keep taking in all the cost without putting a hike in their product. And that's evident with the increase in minimum wage right now. There's a lot of people really struggling. I've had a lot of restaurateurs tell me they're really struggling right now, that they may not make it. And this summer is going to be a testament to whether they make it or not. So I thought, rather than being that wall or that burden or that barricade or whatever you want to call it that makes it difficult for businesses, what if I try to do just the opposite? What if I try to go out there and help promote that business, even if it's small, but to just simply put something out on Twitter promoting a business that I'm proud of, that's within our city of Glendale, somebody that's doing something that I would actually want my family or my friends to go to. And so I'm sort of fussy on that. I mean, if it's something that I don't believe in, if it's something I think is not right, I probably wouldn't promote it. I'm not going to be out doing Kentucky Fried Chickens. I love Kentucky Fried Chicken. Don't take that wrong. But McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chickens, the mass things like that. I want to do more of the independent, the smaller businesses, the people that can go anywhere they want to. That really truly represent what I think is Glendale. Soretta's chocolates, things like that There's only one of them in our area. That's the ones that I typically try to do. But that doesn't mean I won't do anybody. I'll certainly look at it. We're always looking for people to make recommendations. If there's somebody, no matter what type of business it is, if you think somebody's worthy of Business of the Week, let us know. But as the mayor of Glendale, I tell you, I have to do Glendale businesses. I'm not going to go outside and promote a Phoenix business when I'm the mayor of Glendale. That would be taboo. That just probably wouldn't be the smartest thing I could do. And it seems like it's working so well that we had a charity that came to us and said, we'd like to be your Business of the Week. And I said, the problem with doing a charity as Business of the Week, you are a true 501c3, and as soon as somebody gets the notion that you're a business, they look at you differently than a charity. Even though everybody that's ever worked in a charity knows that it is a business. I mean, you got to work it, and you got to have people, and you have a lot more limitations than you do in a business. So I didn't want to do a nonprofit as a business. I wanted to do a nonprofit as a nonprofit. So we have our charity of the month that we do. We have the business of the week that we do. And all of that is done within our office. Carrie, before she became my chief of staff, started doing that, and she's extremely talented. If you look at those, it's professionally done. I had an investment of, I don't know, $600 total. Wasn't very much money. She's probably going to tell me she spent that yesterday on something else. But it hasn't been a huge investment other than the commitment that her and I have to do a 1.5, 2 minute segment. We probably, between the two of us, probably have 14, 15 hours in it between the two of us. So it's a significant investment. Not so much in my time. I have usually 2 hours at the most, usually. Most of it is her time, and of course now she's shifted that burden on to Lori. Lori is extremely talented. We just hired her. She's actually from Puerto Rico and bilingual and extremely talented. So she's now picking it up, and she's the one starting to do that. But it's something that I think we're proud of. I think if we have businesses that we want to promote, we should let people know about it. Be proud of our businesses, not hide them. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
You did. And you brought a video
to
show us. So would you like to show that now?
Absolutely.
From the ground up, top to bottom, we are a service before self organization, meaning that we put the interests of those that we work with before our own. It turns out when you do that, it's really good for business.
We have some other volunteer agents that don't have a farming, that have volunteer to help those of you that need help.
Today, we're a multi-company organization, family of companies that is also active in commercial, very active in property management. We have 150 agents serving the entire Maricopa County. The building is 13,000 square feet. It sits on 1.5 acres of land. It has a 4,000 square foot warehouse out back that we're developing for a community space.
That's something that we want people to do is move to Glendale, and if someone's selling their home, we obviously would like to keep them in Glendale too, and you folks are usually the very first people that make that contact. So thank you so much for what you do. You've got an outstanding business here.
Fourth generation native. My grandfather went to Glendale High School, and I was born and raised here. So I've seen just about everything that this market can go through. It's super exciting. Great things are happening. The group down at Glendale has done an excellent job of bringing new businesses here. We're just really passionate about what we do.
I don't think we're going to get an Oscar or an Emmy, but we're going to keep trying.
Yeah, it's terrific. Yeah, and business appreciates it, I'm sure. Yeah.
I was going to add on to their
comment about microphone.
Still consistent, yeah.
To the very end, yeah.
Yeah.
Next time I'm just going to tape it in.
Yeah. Aging is so fun. I wanted to say, about John Crow. I met him many, many years ago, probably 10, I would say, and he was over at Cactus and 67th Avenue, and he called up one day and he wanted to talk about some things. I said sure, and I went over there, and I was, normally econ dev on the single family side, it's harder because there are rooftops that supply basically the payroll for retail that generates the sales tax revenue for Tom, so that the mayor can dole it out to the police and fire and other folks who provide services. But as I started talking to him, probably I would say one of the few, because in the role it's hard, it's a kind of a 24/7 job, but he's one of the few, I would say, really good friends that I've made from this experience that there's just no way to stop it. And that the notion of what he's done with moving to his building and saying, "No, Brian, I really want to invest in Glendale. I want to find a building. Okay, well, come on in. Let's look at CoStar and Xceligent and find out what we can find." We worked on finding that building together, and I need to get through the process with painting and DR and signs, and we have an ombudsman services role in our department, which is I wanted to pitch. If you need anything in the city, just skip everybody else, except maybe the mayor, and come to us, and we'll try to get you to the right department where we're adept at doing that. It's a little smoother, easier for you, easier for the client, and that's the best part of the job is the relationship component part, which I'm kind of selling here with John Crow. We find him a building, he gets in place, we go through the process kind of together, because when you do things, when it's, I'm telling you, that client experience, like suppose I was a client of John's, I suppose, 'cause he's a citizen and a business owner, and I'm trying to help him. And now at this point, it's very reciprocal. I've been to lunch with him twice in the last 2 months. No, in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Once with Kevin and the chamber president and myself, and once alone. And what he was doing for me alone was he was looking at a 13-up and a 5-up slide presentation on exactly how to articulate, because we think we need 6 or 7 different presentations, on articulating what everything that's kind of been shared here today to the site selector community, to the brokerage community, to the investment community. There's a different presentation to each on Glendale's, the 3 major office, retail, industrial categories, and how to hone the presentation to the submarkets that he feels he's capable of doing it, so that the message is impactful. And so what began as just me, a government worker helping a client do the best he can to relocate and grow his business, became to a point where he's helping our team of 5 people do what we do. And so I think that's just the best part of community and being organic and living this thing together, is you can't help but that human experience. And I think culturally, it's nice to see that the mayor's out at his level doing his own thing. Tom, everyone is doing that with different businesses and different entities, and look, obviously the same people at different levels. And I think that really creates, the magic of community and why people want to invest. And when C-level executives talk to other C-level executives, it matters. In the end, everything is held equal in a vacuum. Do you trust? Do you have a relationship? And what you said, is it true? And did you perform?
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, because we had several more questions, and perhaps I can follow up with you all, and we can sort of go through those questions and let the membership know the answers, because this has been very informative, very enjoyable. I'm just sorry we don't have more time. This really cemented what we saw last year in the Economic Forum when Glendale came through and was talking about the Ombudsman program, was talking about the changes they've made, so that if your clients have that old vision of what Glendale was, we started to see last year through that Economic Forum that Glendale had changed. And this really cements the fact that Glendale has changed. So whether you have commercial or residential clients, they may need an education and help in understanding how Glendale has changed. And you have people that you can guide them to for that great information. So I hope you take advantage of that.
Could I finish
Yes.
up with
Absolutely.
just a quick statement? For the folks that are interested in Glendale, our downtown Glendale, we now have hired a downtown manager, and our focus is going to be to make downtown great. And we have a lot of work to do down there, an awful lot of work to do. But we've taken those steps to have a downtown manager to help manage it, to make the businesses that are downtown and in Catlin Court understand they have to work together, not fight each other. They're all downtown, even though Catlin Court sort of thinks that they're separate. They're not separate. It's all downtown. Arrowhead Mall. They're one of the. I can't tell you the details. They promised or told me not to tell anybody, but they are extremely successful. They put a very, very large amount of capital into remodeling that just a year ago. And then you start looking at Loop 303. We have 5 miles of frontage on both sides of 303. We only have 3 miles on both sides of 101. So when you start, did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. when you start thinking of what we've been able to do out at 101 and the development and all the things going on, just imagine the future with 303. And then start thinking that Maricopa County is the fastest growing county in the country, in the entire United States. The West Valley is going to far outnumber the growth of Phoenix and of the East Valley, far exceed. The epicenter of the new growth, of the possibilities for every one of you to be successful, starts in Glendale and goes west. The future is limitless, and I say that in all sincerity. I could not have picked a better time to start as mayor, literally won my election, at the worst time possible, because everything that's happened, I'm going to look really good. And it really comes down to believing that we can make a difference. You know, again, I live each and every day believing this. You know, I want to make a positive difference in someone's life each and every day. And the city, the staff, has all made that happen for me. So thank you for allowing us to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming.